Hello, good morning, and welcome to the latest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. Sorry, I'm a bit late with posting the episode out. It's been a busy week, very busy, and tiring as well. Like yesterday, I finished my day job although I finished at 1 p.m. because I started at 7. It was still so tiring. And I just came home and pretty much slept for most of the evening and just woke up this morning. And yeah, it's been a busy week, busy time. I've got some super exciting news to share with you all, though. Um, but we'll do once it's officially official. But trust me, they are great news. And besides of that, I think I'm just gonna leave it here. I'm just gonna let you enjoy my conversation this week with Sydney May, who I've met at the British one of the heats for the British Comedian of the Year, maybe like a month or so ago when we basically we were on the same panel together, and it's been such a pleasure to chit chat with her on the night, on the evening, and then um, to have her on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure, and it's been such a good conversation. If I say so myself, it's been a brilliant conversation. But I'll let you decide that in a second. And that's it from me. Enjoy the conversation with Sydney May. Okay, so Sydney, thank you so much for doing this. How are you?
I'm very good, if a little croaky. So please excuse the fact that my father came for lunch on Saturday and brought some lovely germs with him.
When you say I hope he gets better soon. Did he like behave or like look or sound as if he was ill, or
Oh yeah,
you
literally.
just figured that? Yeah, okay, right.
I opened the door and the first thing he said was, "Have you got something for a headache?" And then he's coughing and spluttering all the way through lunch, and all I was thinking was, "Thanks, Dad. I've got no hope." Monday morning, yeah, yeah. Extra presents from Daddy.
That's nice. And then
Yeah.
what? Because you're talking about like him coming to visit you. Where are you from? Or like is he? How far away does he live?
So I'm in Brighton, but my family are all in Kent, in the Kent countryside. So it's like an hour and a bit drive. So yeah, my mum or my dad will visit fairly frequently. So maybe too frequently, some might say.
And I mean, the thing is, recently I spoke with quite a lot people from Kent,
Yeah.
and they love it there. So are you again? Is it that you were born and you lived in Kent as well, and then you
Yeah.
moved to Brighton, or is it that they moved out of Brighton to Kent?
No, I was born and raised in the Kent countryside. I came to Brighton 15 years ago now. Told my family for the music college. Really, it was for the gays. And never left.
I heard about like the Brighton Pride
Yeah,
years ago. Like I remember, again, and I'm talking about it in the respects of not having been in England before, and then I remember when I first moved to Manchester, which was almost, I think, like what, 12 or 13 years ago. I heard that people were like, "Oh, Brighton is good, but like Manchester is like, is like a gay heaven, or like
yeah,
the
yeah.
place to be." And I was like, "Oh, people keep referencing Brighton." in this. And then I think I read an article about, again, I've read something, and he was talking about how the Brighton Pride is like super, is meant to be like really popular and like very good, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's kind of the original. It was always the biggest. I think now it's almost too big. It's, Brighton is not a massive city. It's a very small city. Some people say it, it's barely a city. Compared to something like London. But yeah, Brighton Pride is still legendary. It was recently. It's always the beginning of August. It's just an excuse to have a party, really. I think it's
Oh
in a
yeah.
way it's started to lose its meaning because it's so big, and I think everybody just uses it an excuse to have a party. So yeah, it's a funny one, but yeah, Brighton is amazing, is lovely for its diversity and how it welcomes things like Pride.
And before you came to, because actually, before we continue, I wanted to ask, for anyone who's listening, who's not familiar with who you are, do you want to
Be a
tell
lot of
us
people.
who are you? Yeah.
Who am I? It's a very good question. Yeah, I'm Sydney May. Obviously, Levy and I met through comedy, so I'm a comedian. I've been very, very lucky enough to win a couple of awards this year. I've won the Brighton Comedian New Comedy Award back in February 2025, and then more recently the Comedy Bloomers LGBTQ New Comedian of the Year in June 25. So yeah, comedy's kind of exploded in my life in an awesome way. But as well as that, I'm a life coach. I'm trying to niche my coaching now into coaching other performers. I do a lot of work with people and confidence. I also do some motivational speaking on mindset, on the coaching, and it's actually how I got into comedy. Was I started going to a public speaking club, and they kept telling me actually I should be doing comedy. So in other words, they couldn't take me seriously even when I was trying to be serious. So yeah, here I am.
Okay, and then because it's quite interesting because I feel like one of the things I wanted to ask you is that sometimes it's kind of like the other way around where people do comedy first and then they do more public speaking of any other kind.
Yeah.
But then I'm quite curious, like how when did you? I guess yeah. When did you know that this is something that you wanted to do in the respects of life coaching and public speaking?
So I've had an interest in coaching for a long time. I think as any kind of therapist will say, as most people would say, I went through my own struggles. Mostly kind of when I was in my late teens. I went through depression, I went through anxiety, all the standard stuff that so many creatives go through. And that kind of started my interest in, I think I went to see a hypnotherapist when I was suffering with panic attacks, and he really helped me to understand how my mind was working and like why my mind was causing me this anxiety, because it was trying to protect me. And that sort of sparked my interest. And the more I learned and the more I was able to help myself out of some of the deep pits that I was in, the more I wanted to be able to then help other people do the same. So, I had a bit of the schooling from life, but then when I got my coaching training, I'm a master practitioner of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is just fascinating and I love it. And it teaches us so much about how our minds work. And then just I had stories to tell. So, I love doing the one-on-one coaching, but I also love opportunities where, if you do a good talk to a group of people, you can help far more than just one person. And that, yeah, I love that. I'm really motivated by that.
I see. But then, have you ever thought that you're gonna be a comedian at this point, or like, did you have that on the back of your mind that this is potentially another
another career goal or another thing to do? Like, when did you started, I guess, envisioning yourself as a comedian? Or to be not as a comedian, but yeah, when did you
Yeah.
envision yourself the comedian or being a comedian?
I think it's been there for longer than even I've realised. Like I've had people before ask me about my first experience as a comedy, and my first experience of comedy was cassette tapes in my mum's car in the 90s. And I remember, and now I'm aware. Obviously, you said you haven't been in the UK for all of your life, so my introduction to comedy was Jasper Carrot. Have you heard of him?
No, never.
I mean, he's I think he's still alive, but yeah, I haven't seen him on the comedy scene for a long time. It's in the 90s. Feel free to look him up. And we had tapes of him, and then a bit later it was Eddie Izzard.
I know it is that.
Yeah, but I feel like even as a kid listening to these tapes in the car, I think even then I was thinking, what a cool job. Like what a cool thing to do. And I think I was always the funny one even as a kid. I'd make people laugh. I was always very sarcastic, which definitely runs in my family. We're a very dry, humoured family. We take the merciless piss out of each other. We're very sarky with each other. So I think it's been there for a long time, and I just never considered it as a career. And then I did a course. I did half a course at the beginning of 2020, which was then cancelled before it could end because of lockdown in the March.
Yes.
And then put that on hold. Even during the course, I was like, hey, this is really fun, and people are laughing. That's a good sign. But then I left it alone for a bit. Had some stuff going on in my life, sort of 21, 22. They weren't great years for a lot of people, were they, with COVID and all the changes in life. And then started a different course in 2023. Went to the first meeting. It was it was an odd bunch of people. It was just not odd, but we were all very different. And I even thought then, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure if I'm going to go back. I'm so glad I did go back and I did see it through, and I did that first proper gig and was just completely and utterly hooked. And that was November 2023. But even then, I wasn't thinking this is going to be my career. I was thinking this is really fun. And I think I was at a time in my life where I needed something new. I was looking for something and I didn't know what it was. And then it was that, and I threw myself into it. I just started signing up for new material nights every week, and just all of last year, all of 2024, I just did new material nights, practiced. Kept saying I feel like my catchphrase of last year was, if people stop laughing, I'll stop doing it. And people kept laughing. So, and I just entered the competitions with a kind of, nothing to lose. All you have to do is send in a video. Nobody is more surprised than me that I've won these awards. It's just bananas. And even now, I think it's quite a new concept for me to be like, is this actually, am I professional? Am I making a career out of this? Like, am I actually good at this? It's crazy. I'm still sort of pinching myself in a way, being like, oh my God, I'm not making enough money to quit the day job, but I'm making, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
People are still laughing. So, yeah.
And this is the thing. I feel like it's such a nice. It's almost like it's one of the nice problems to have, and you're like, I don't know what's happening, or like I don't know, how we got here. I feel like, and I think it's something that you've touched on before as well, when you were like, look, 2021, 2022, not great years, and then in 2023, you're. Because actually, funnily enough, I think it was around 20. Oh my God, it's been 40 years, or like almost, it's been almost 40 years since I started doing stand up as well. So actually, I think so now it's funnily enough also because I had like such a rough 2021, 2022, 2020, 2021, and I was like, I guess I will start writing my thoughts, and then that turned into comedy.
And you know as
because
well
I
as I
did.
do, it's such a buzz, isn't it? There's no better
Yeah,
buzz. Yeah.
yeah, and then well, actually, this is another thing that I was curious about is that with me, what I find is that when I went back to and I had a day job in like tech support and
Hmm.
so it's not to say that I had like the most rewarding job in the world, but all I was
Hmm.
saying is that once I found comedy,
Yeah.
going back to like the day job, it
Yeah.
felt like it didn't matter how well I was performing in that job. It didn't matter
Yeah.
what happened on the day. Yeah, I would not get the feeling nowhere near as close
No,
as like
absolutely.
when
The bump
yeah,
back
like
to earth.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. uh, but actually, I was curious about because you mentioned about like struggling with like depression and anxiety, and was that the reason why you've got? Because I know you've got some qualifications, right, for
Mm.
like coaching like in mental health support.
Yeah.
Is the reason why? So again, because is the reason why you've got into it, or like why you decided to actually have this career? And now I'm not talking about comedy. I'm talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
the life coaching. Is
Yeah.
it because again you started having a passion for mental health, or I guess perhaps like having doing all that extensive uh, training
Yeah.
because of what happened, or like yeah, because of what happened to you, or is
Yeah.
it something that you've already thought about, like when you were a child, almost? What did you want it to be when you were a child?
Yeah, I think I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I was a child. I was very interested in radio. I was very into music. I've always been into music. I'm still, I play in a band now as well as doing comedy. But I didn't think about being a coach or a kind of therapist until I'd gone through my own. And I think all the best therapists are that because they've been through their own struggles. You can't, there's so much that
Mm-hmm.
you can't learn. You can get qualifications, you can learn things on paper, but I think it's very different. I think I coach from experience. I coach people who I can genuinely relate to, and I can understand, and I don't just know what they're talking about in theory. And to me, I think that's a really important thing, and it helps me build a rapport with clients to, because I'm very open with my clients, and I can say that I understand something that they're going through, or I've experienced it myself, which is a big reason why I'm a coach, not a counselor, because the kind of the concept of a counselor is you're not really supposed to talk, whereas coaching is a
Mm.
lot more, the way I coach is a lot more of a conversation. It's about the client, it's not about me. The client's there to do the most talking, but I'm also there to offer insight and guidance. And I think people actually, what I have learned in my time of doing this is that people really quite appreciate when you level with them, and when you say, I get this. This is my experience. This is how my experience compares to yours. So yeah, I think the struggles that I have had have made me the coach that I am, really, and that's what's, and people will say to me now things like, oh, you never get stressed. How are you so calm? And I'm like, because I wasn't always like this. I've had to learn. I've had to learn to be like this. So this is not who I was 20 years ago.
And
Yeah,
you,
it's all.
you with that, I find it so fascinating when yeah, people do. You hear things as such like, oh, how are you managing to hold in so well,
Mm,
or anything like that? And it's like it wasn't always like this.
exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It's almost like we got here now,
Yeah. Yeah. This
but that's
taken
not.
work.
Yeah, it's taken
Mm,
the work. And then how did you know then, like, or like how did you, because you mentioned this thing about, which actually I didn't know, or I didn't think about the difference between life coaching and counseling. is
mm.
that uh, is that basically when you were, did you know that that was like a big difference between the two when you've decided to train or like take this profession?
Yeah.
Or is it something that you found later on and that's what made you go from, okay, I'm not going to do counseling, I'm going to be a life coach instead?
I mean, yeah, I sort of did learn as I went. I always had an interest in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because that was one of the things that when I started reading about it that helped me personally. And it just made a lot of sense. Like if you read about NLP, you start reading about how your mind works, how your unconscious mind works. There's nothing in it that you're like, no, that's rubbish. Everything is like, yes, that makes perfect sense. And that's why I've liked it. Now, I am not going to knock counselling. I have a counsellor. I think talking therapy is extremely valuable, and we should all have access to some kind of talking therapy. I think it's just healthy. But for me, I like being a coach. I like being able to, and it's not about me telling people what to do, but it's about I can offer insight. I can say to somebody, if somebody says something in a certain way, and I'm like, right, if you thought about it in this way instead of that way, you're going to feel really differently about it. I'm very much a pickup. So neuro-linguistic programming, obviously it's got the word linguistic in it. So it's very much about language. So I'm always listening to the language people are using. And so often people make such innocent mistakes because we don't understand. If you don't understand how the things that you're thinking are affecting the way you feel, and sometimes it is just as simple as the words you're using when you're thinking and when you're speaking. So I love that part of it. I love the practical side of how you can change your mindset using NLP. I'm qualified to do hypnosis. And sometimes it just feels like a bit more of a direct approach than counselling. And something else I really like about coaching is, to me, it just feels a little bit more positive. Coaching is generally more about looking forward than looking back. So sometimes counselling is really good if you need to process something that's happened. If you need to talk about something that's happened, then that's where counselling is brilliant. Coaching is more about where are we now, where do we want to get to, and then let's figure out how we're going to get there. If people need to talk about something that happened in the past, then I absolutely give them space to do that. And sometimes it really helps with looking at why are we struggling with this? Why is this a challenge? Because of that thing in the past. Okay, we deal with that. Now we're going to look at how that can help us move forward. So it's a little bit more forward thinking, and just feels a little bit more positive. I don't think I'm very good at just sitting listening without being able to offer something back. So I don't think counselling was for me. It was always going to be this kind of coaching, NLP. I'm also qualified in something called timeline therapy, which isn't very well known in this country. Have you ever heard of timeline therapy?
No.
So it's a very effective, very confronting way of dealing with trauma, but very quickly. Sometimes you can really deal with a trauma in like one session, and it's about using. Yeah, it's really powerful. Like I say, it's tough because what you essentially do in a timeline therapy session is, let's say you're struggling with, it's very good for things like PTSD, but you have to go back to the event in your mind and you have to look at it from above, essentially. You visualize moving back through the timeline of your life to this event, but you're not in your body, you're looking down on the scene. And you do that to gain some perspective and to find what you can learn from that event, because there's always something to learn, even in the absolute worst things that have happened to you. There are always things you can learn, and it's not about saying this thing wasn't bad. It's about saying we can learn, even if the learning is I'm stronger than I thought I was and I survived that horrific thing. That's a learning. Timeline therapy is really good for looking at events from above, from outside of yourself, so you're not experiencing them. It's obviously, like I say, it's quite confronting because you do have to go and look down on that event. But It's extremely powerful. And to me, that, and the fact that you can do that in one session, and it takes a lot, but to me, that seems so much more, just more powerful than just going to a counsellor and talking about it for multiple, for sessions, for weeks, for months. And maybe just talking it over isn't doing it, isn't making it any better. And I can say this as a practitioner of timeline therapy, and I've also been a recipient of it. When I went through something a couple of years ago, I went back to my trainer and I said, is this the kind of thing timeline therapy can help with? And she said, absolutely. And she really did. It helped me a huge amount in one session. And it's just one of those things. It's not very well known over here. It was coined by a guy in America. And we don't seem to know much about it, which is a shame, because I do think it's phenomenally effective.
You know, I mean, there are loads of questions that I feel like
Sorry,
I
that was
want
a
to
tangent.
ask you. No, don't worry, because I wanted to. I feel like the first question, or like the one that it's kind of like on it's the first one that I thought about, or the one that I'm thinking about the most now. It's obviously you sound like, and I'll just ask the question. So, how much do you find that people actually know when they reach out to you? You know, like to in the respects of, you know, how much do they know, like how much do you feel like they've done the research on the, you know, on the types, on the basically like the certifications that you have on your on your website. Do you, because obviously you sound like you have done a lot of research, and you, like, you know, because you were talking about how you said that you went to your was it like your counselor or coach before, and you were like, hey, do you think this therapy, which you or what do you call it, the time maps or timeline?
Timeline
You're like,
therapy.
oh, do you think this like timeline therapy thing would work? That, to me, sounds like you've done the research. You looked at like things that you can try, and then timeline was one of them. And then you go to so then obviously now I guess I have to, or like I'm thinking about, or like I take into consideration the fact that with you being interested about mental health and having again been around it, or being involved and learning for such a while, obviously you would have a better understanding that than someone who, you know, say it's going through trying to understand themselves and their mental health right now. But then
Absolutely.
I'm just quite curious, like when people reach out to you, do you find it that they already know what's about to happen, or that they already have an understanding, or do you actually see it more as in people again don't know that much, but obviously they are just looking for help?
I think there is definitely a mixture. Some people do a lot of research about their problem, and we had this saying when I was doing my training, which is the presenting problem is never the problem, which is quite a good one, because it sort of means that sometimes when people first come to you and they say this is a problem, there's usually so much more to it than that. So yeah, I think there are two different types of people. There are the people that research which therapy they want, and they'll read a description of what each therapy is about, how it works, and they'll go, yeah, I think that's the one I want, and then they'll find someone who can do that. Or you'll get the people who have researched, these are all the things that are wrong, help me fix them, you know. So I think there is that mixture, and now that I'm kind of niching more into working with performers, it's things like I've worked with a few people just on performance anxiety, but it's never as simple as performance anxiety. It's not just when I'm about to go on stage I'm nervous. It's then, right, where's that coming from? What form is the nervousness taking? What are the voices in your head saying? You know, whose voice is the nervous one? There's so much more to it. And so, you know, sometimes even I don't know which kind of therapy I'm going to use, because I've got different tools. I've got just kind of the conversational coaching side. There are all sorts of different interventions you can use. There are little tricks you can use with NLP. You know, somebody might come to me and we'll be having a conversation, and I'll be like, right, I know there's an NLP trick here that works really well. So I don't think you should kind of prescribe a specific kind of therapy to start with. I think it should be about looking at what the barrier is, what the challenge is, and then figuring out together I'm not like, right, I'm going to do this to you now. It has to be, let's figure this out together. And this is why, for me, at first, it is just about talking and for me to learn about the person. And they might have an idea of what therapy they think they want, and I might disagree from talking to them, It's not, it's not prescriptive. It can't be prescriptive because also every single person is different, So it's a different kind of therapy, different approach is going to work.
And here is something that I found like quite interesting, and I want to hear like what's your thought on it, because it's almost like my like basically what my eyes have been opened to right now is the fact that when you hear people talk about, or like again professionals talk about, like, oh, I have this qualification and this qualification and this qualification, is not to say that, oh, if you think that, oh, you need to do this, I can do it. It's more to say that if you tell me what the problem is, then I have these, almost like I have these things in my back pocket.
Exactly.
That I can use whichever one of these.
Exactly. I think there's more to it.
It will help out, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes people don't care how many qualifications you have, and people more care about you saying, right, I'm confident, I can help you, and this is how I'm going to do it. I think, I think there's also this kind of thing where there would be some counsellors. I'm not saying all counsellors at all. There would be some counsellors who don't respect my ways of coaching and the NLP and things in the same way, because counselling is a very different thing, and you need, there's a degree, there's a university degree that you have to be a counsellor, whereas coaching qualifications are a bit different. There's not a recognised degree in coaching or NLP, so the qualifications sometimes can be belittled. Like I say, I'm not saying every counsellor or psychologist frowns upon coaching, but there can be a bit of that, which is a shame. And to me, it's not the pieces of paper that matter.
Yeah, I think again, especially I think when it's about working with people who need support.
Yeah.
It's about that, prioritizing that they get the right support, and as long as, I think, in my opinion, and again, as someone who's struggled with their mental health for a very long time, someone who's thinking about it in the regard of like, oh, like not necessarily the patient but the customer, like I'm the person who's like, oh, I'm looking for help. I see your point, but it's like, it's not necessarily, oh, this is a university degree, or this is a, again, this is a diploma, or again, this is a course that's not like a university accredited or whatever. It's more about, as long as I get the sense that, okay, I can get the help that I need or want.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I was curious about, and again, we're going to go between topics, and we're going to go between
that's fun.
things, just because I'm curious. So then, basically, excuse me. Now, my throat feels a bit like it's
contagious
tickling.
Through the airwaves.
Yeah, through the cameras and laptops as well, apparently. But no, so basically, because you were talking about how you were in your teens when you is that when, because you're talking about, like, is that when you noticed that you were struggling with your mental health, or is that when you started struggling with your mental health?
That is a very good question, isn't it? I think, and they're two different things, aren't they? I think I had a thing where I had to change secondary schools halfway through, so I moved to a new school in year 10 here, so I was just under 15. It was the year before all the GCSEs, the big exams, and that was basically because I was having a bad time at school. And I moved to another school where I then had a much better time. But I think what happened to me was a delayed response to the first school when I was having a really bad time. I think when I was having a bad time, I was a little bit numb. I was clearly miserable, like I was clearly not enjoying life. But it was actually when I went to college, and life on the face of it was really good, and I had friends, and I was having a great time. I started self-medicating with alcohol. I was definitely massively struggling. Took a while to put a label on it, because the other thing that was going on with me at the time was I had no appetite. I was too slim. I was tiny. I weighed 5.5 stone when I was 15. Now I'm very short. I'm very tiny anyway. But yeah, I was unhealthily skinny.
Right.
And people were wondering if I was anorexic or had an eating disorder, and I didn't have an eating disorder. I didn't want to be thin. I just couldn't eat. And now I know if anything's wrong with me, if I feel, if it's depression or if it's anxiety, particularly anxiety, the first thing I get is the stomach. Is my stomach goes. So I'm not hungry. I'm the opposite of a comfort eater, and I still am. If something's wrong, I feel everything in my stomach. I feel like excitement as well, good things.
Yeah.
Every emotion, I feel it very much in my stomach. So yeah, there was a properly weird, horrible, messed up time where I was clearly really struggling and just hadn't figured out what was going on. And I can remember when I did, and it finally went to, right, let's get some medication. And everybody has different views on antidepressants. For me, they absolutely pulled me out of the pit that I was in. That and counselling and other things. I was very against them. I didn't want to go on them, and I fought it for a while. And then, of course, when I was feeling better, I started thinking, why did I fight that for so long? But yeah, that it's a really interesting question of when did you start struggling, or when did you notice that you started struggling, because they are different. They're definitely different. I think there were a couple of, even as much as a year or two in my life where I was struggling and things were not right, but I didn't know what. I was having like physical health checks and things to be like, why do I feel sick all the time? Why am I not hungry? And it was purely, definitely now I know, it was absolutely mental health. There was nothing physically wrong with me.
And you see the reason why I ask this is because I think about how, what I was 5 years ago, so I was 20. God. Anyway, my early 20s. When thank you. In my early 20s, when I kind of decided to open up and seek some support, like we talk about like my mental health basically, but I've struggled with it since I was 13. So, wow. But you see, so that's why when I ask that question, this is the reason why I ask it. It's kind of like now I know why I struggled when I was 13, but I'm curious to know at what point did you know that you were, and also now, sorry, to bring it back to you, my question was, how open were you at the time about, like, did your parents, or like did your close,
oh God, no.
Did the people in your close circle knew that you were struggling with your mental health? Did they how did you open up, I guess, to them?
Yeah, I found it really hard. I think at first I didn't even know, I think, as I'm sure you were the same when you were 13, you don't know what the hell's going on. Like, I couldn't put into words what I was feeling, particularly when it's feelings you've never had before. You're like, what the hell, what is this? I don't know, I don't. And I just didn't really know how to talk to people. I can remember when I think I was 16 when I wanted to go on antidepressants, and they said, we'll only give you them if you have counselling as well, and which I think is a really good thing, because it's never just a case of medication. It was a good thing that they forced me to go to a counsellor, but I didn't know how to talk to that counsellor. It took me a long time, and even now I've got the same counsellor that I had when I first moved to Brighton, I think I was just under 19 when I first started seeing my counsellor, and it took me a long time to learn to talk. Like, just, yeah, to learn to talk about my feelings, just to learn to be open. I think I was very closed. I was very closed off. Partly, like I say, partly because I didn't know how to talk about it, and partly because I was, I don't know, probably afraid to.
And you, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think teenagers aren't good at talking. Teenagers don't know how to put their emotions into words. I've always said I wouldn't. I'm guessing you'd probably agree from what you said. I've always said I wouldn't relive my teenage years for anything.
It's weird. I feel like, I have that, and I don't know, but wait, what I was going to say is that, yeah, so I feel like, I don't know if this is, maybe it's like a times thing. Cause, sorry, in one hand, I would like to relive those years because some things were like some things were really cool.
Yeah.
But then in the other hand, so basically there is like this. I don't
I'd
see
relive
like
them with the knowledge I have now.
That's it. I was gonna.
Yeah.
That's like it's a thing that I've heard a lot growing up in Romania. It was about how what wouldn't I give to have the mind that I have now in and at that point. So then I would relive those years with all the knowledge that of like how to deal with it. But I was going to ask you, because you talked about like the almost like the willfulness of I have to I have to do counseling because it's a part of the deal like you mentioned before. Do you find that sort of willfulness in people? Because I know that I've struggled with it as well. But not necessarily at the beginning, because again, like my journey went through, from like calling a helpline, an emergency helpline, to then be referred to do therapy, and again, to me, was kind of like I brought myself there. I brought myself there. But now in I know in some respects, and again, it still happened to me when I had to see certain professionals or I had to do certain things where the willfulness kicks in, where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm made to do this.
Yeah.
Do you find that as well? Because I actually, from what you've told me and from what I gauged so far, it sounds like life coaching or like what you do basically it's more the case of people going, I want the help, and I feel like here it might be it, like you are you can offer that help. So do you find it that like perhaps sometimes there can be willfulness, or is it more the case of different fields or like different places where people actually get referred to go so that they can have that they can improve their life or situation or anything like that?
I mean, I'm not the kind of person that anybody from the NHS would refer to. And I do find people come to me because they want to. And there's one thing I'll be really strict about, particularly when I've done hypnosis with people. So, like, someone came to me once and said, right, I've got to lose some weight. My husband really wants me to lose some weight. And I'm like, I can't work with that. Because if you don't want to, then it won't work. I can't hypnotize you, and this is one of the one of the misunderstandings about hypnosis, is you cannot hypnotize somebody to do something they don't want to do. You can hypnotize someone to help them do something they're finding difficult, but they have to want to be able to do it. And that's something I would be really strict about, because I'd be like, look, I would be unethical to take your money when I know this isn't going to work. So I am quite strict that actually people have to want my help, and they have to want to change the things that they're finding difficult. So like I've worked with people over the years, and they'll come to me I was working with a mum who was having real trouble with her son, but everything she was saying was it's all his fault. It's all, well, he does this and he does that. And I'm like, but there are things that you can do differently too. There are ways you can respond differently. And if people aren't open to that, then we're fighting a losing battle. So I find it's a really important thing to me is to make sure that somebody actually understands that I'm not here to fix their problems, and that they're going to have to do some work. And that's the point of it is we work together, but for the kind of work that I do, the client or the person who comes to me really has to understand that they are going to have to put some work in, and they have to want to do it. They have to want to do it. Otherwise, it's just really, really difficult. It's really hard to trick your mind into doing something you don't want to do, because you can't trick your own mind, right? Your mind is in there. It's hearing the thoughts. It knows. You can't hide from your own brain. So it just becomes a real uphill battle. Because a lot of what I do is helping people to change the way they're thinking or to change a habit, but they have to want to make that change, or we'll just be going around in circles.
I see that, yeah, and
Does that make sense?
It does make it does make sense, because I feel like essentially, or like the way it sounded, it's kind of like, again, the thing is that you have to be in that headspace, or get to that headspace where you're like, okay, I want to change this, or like I acknowledge that I need the help.
Yeah.
And now I'm just kind of like looking for the right person to guide me. Yeah. But I already know, or like I already feel like I will pretty much. I feel this way. I think I actually felt this way at some points when I seek therapy. Where not seek therapy, sorry, seek support. Where it's kind of like, I know I know that I need help with something. I'm not sure I know what it is. Yeah. But here it is. I put myself on this plate.
Yeah. And that's perfect. If you're open to it, you have to be open. My best clients, the easiest clients to work with are the ones that say to me, right, I'm going to do what you've just suggested. And they throw themselves into it. And I think, if you go in with a willingness to do that, and a willingness to hear, if I throw back at you, right, this is what you've just said, and this is how it's making you feel, and this is how you could think of it in a different way. Like I say, the easiest clients for me to work with are the ones that go, right, yep, on it, gonna do it, gonna make the effort, because it is an effort. It's always an effort. Like you'll know as well as anybody, you go and you seek support for something that you're struggling with. It's exactly what it says. It's a struggle, and it's not always going to be easy to change it. But the one thing that I really bang on about in my coaching is the decisions we make, because I think it's too easy to forget, or to even not realize that we can make decisions, that that we are making decisions all the time about the things that we do physically, but also the things that we think and the things that we feel. And a lot of what I help people to do is to make a different decision, is to, if every day, sometimes this is really simple, right? If every day you wake up and you decide that you're going to be depressed, you will stay depressed and you will feel depressed, because that's what you're telling yourself. If you wake up every morning and think, right, these are the things I'm going to do today, we're going to make this a good day, you're making a different decision. Now, I'm not saying that's easy. I am not saying that's easy, but I'm saying, actually, something I say in my coaching a lot is there's a difference between simple and easy. So sometimes there's a simple decision that you can make to change the way that you are, the way that you're responding to something, the way that you're thinking about something. You can decide to think of that in a different way. And sometimes it literally is that simple. But I'm not saying that is easy. And that's a big part of what I help. A good example of that is, I was talking about doing comedy. You can decide, as so many people say to me, I'm sure you've had people say it to you, like, oh my God, I could never do that. I could never do stand-up comedy. I'd be terrified. And I'm like, That's a story you're telling yourself. You're telling yourself, I could never do that. I'll be terrified. What if you told yourself, that looks like fun. I'm not going to die. You know? Who says it? Who says it's the most terrible? Who says I can't do it? Nobody's saying I can't do it other than me. You know? So change the decision. What's the worst that can happen? I love that one. I do love that one. When people are anxious about something, I'm literally like, what's the worst that can happen? Because usually when you actually ask that question, the worst thing that can happen is generally not that bad. So,
Yeah.
excuse me, it really is. And I just think such a thing that I really love teaching people is that whole thing about how we are making decisions. And there's so much outside of us that we can't control. You know, we can't control the world outside of us. We can't control how other people react to us. We can't control everything that happens outside of us. But we can control ourselves. And we can take control. We can make a different decision to have a different experience. So this is the crux of my coaching, is the Sydney Banks, another Sydney. My coaching is very inspired. I know, it's ironic, right?
I actually, sorry to interrupt you, but I actually thought it's like as an alternative ego, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, you're now speaking with Sydney May, and then Sydney Banks is like someone that's just kind of like.
I feel like he is my alter ego. Sadly, he's not with us anymore, but he was a coach back in the 70s, and he just talked about our experience and the nature of our experience, and how, if you really think about it, our experience comes from the inside of us, not from the outside of us, because everything we experience outside of us is being shaped and changed by how we're thinking about it. So in that sense, we are in control of it, because we're not in control of the things that happen outside of us, but we're in control of how we choose to respond to that. So, you know, the idea of doing stand-up comedy is an ideal one, because this proves the point perfectly, is some people love getting up on stage, some people are terrified but do it anyway, some people are too terrified to even try it. The thing itself is the same, but the way people feel about it is so different. And that proves that point of how the exact same thing, you know, there's no one thing in the world that everybody is scared of, or there's no one thing in the world that everybody loves, because it's all being shaped by our thoughts and feelings inside. And I think what I have learned in my years, and what I love teaching people to do, is to grab the control of that, is to realize that actually you can grab the control of that. Does that make any sense?
It does, and I was thinking about quite a few, you know, of the things that you said, and before I interrupted you, you know, talking about like, is Sydney Banks just like an alter ego? What I was thinking about was this. Obviously I've heard it before that, you know, I wouldn't be able to do this, and I'm like, well, you say that without having done it, but then actually, you know, one of the things that I'm always, or like not always, but I'm mindful of is the. Is the respect of wait, what was going to, 1 second, sorry, let me think about how to phrase this properly. So one of the things that I think about is, you know, like you said, you have to be almost like you have to be up for it, or you have to, or ideally, you know, you learn to. I wouldn't even say trust yourself, because I actually feel like even now I'm thinking about my personal experiences now, and I'm like, you know, I sometimes, like, even when I started doing comedy, I don't think I trusted myself that I'd be, you know, I'd enjoy it or I'd be good at it. It was more of the case, I want to try this, let's try it, let's see, you know, what's happening. And I think it's like you said, where like
I think that's how I was as well.
The worst thing that can happen, it's it's nowhere near even like what actually happened anyway. But anyway, so what I was trying to say is, what about how do you see, or how do you deal if you've been in the situation of people, you know, not being that kind to themselves? because I think
Oh.
that's a huge, and at least like, 'cause I know I'm not. I know that I'm probably,
Nobody
no,
is.
exactly. But it's about the
Yeah.
extent that it goes to. So
Yeah.
then, look, sometimes, and I wake up and I can think, like, if I not even wake up, because it can be during the same day, and I know that perhaps
Mm.
my borderline personality disorder makes an appearance, but.
Mm.
Yeah, even during the day, sometimes, like, look, even today, I think I woke up a bit late and a bit groggy, and I was like, oh, I'm the biggest piece of shit. Like, nothing is
Yeah.
I'll never amount to anything. Then I got out of bed. I think I've seen, I got a notification from Spotify for creators about reaching like a new milestone with the downloads, and I was like, oh,
That's amazing.
perfect. Yeah, exactly. I was like, that's amazing. That's it. That's the way it's gonna go for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
then I think, I think I had my morning like coffee, and I was like, oh, this doesn't sit well with me. Well, I guess life's gonna be miserable from now on, isn't it? And then you go. I went to the gym, and then in the gym things I did pretty well, and I was like, oh, this is good. But then when I got home, I was like, oh, I'm quite tired and sleepy now. Again, I think that's it. It's done. Like,
You're
life's
on a
over.
roller coaster.
Yeah. So then, and obviously, again, I'm saying what I have to caveat this again. I am aware that the extent of like my emotional dysregulation is much higher than in other people because of the condition that I've been diagnosed with, and I know
That's
that
the
I have.
nature of borderline personality. Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, if you see it even in the milder cases, and like the point I was trying to make was, sometimes people can wake up one day and believe that they can change and believe that they can do well, and they can do whatever they want, or like whatever they put their mind to. But then the same people can wake up the next day feeling like that's a lie.
Yeah. The hard part is to push through that. The hardest part is to push through that when you do get those days. Because we all get those days. I'm not saying I don't. We get those days. And I think the first thing is to notice. And I can remember, we're talking about how my journey got me here to helping other people. I can vividly remember a particular night when I was about 19, I think, when I had been struggling. I was flat sharing with a friend. He had a couple of mates over. They were in his room, and I was on my own. And I was just feeling miserable because I was on my own. It was a Friday night. I didn't have any plans. I don't know. I was just feeling miffed that he was with mates and I wasn't. And I suddenly noticed the tone of voice in my own head. I was like, I sound like I'm just a stroppy, miserable teenager, which I was. But I heard it. I heard it in my own head, and then I thought, why am I doing this? I was like, I could just change that voice. Why? That voice is making me feel miserable. This voice is in my own head, which means it's not somebody else's, which means I've got control of it. And I just decided, let's change up that tone. I don't like that miserable tone that's in my head. So I'm gonna make it sound different because I can, because it's in my head. And that was for me, that was like a realization of, oh my God, I can do that. I do have the power to do that. And we all have the power to do that. And, and self-kindness, oh my God. I mean, I come across this all the time because we are by nature disgusting to ourselves. We all do it. Like I say, we say things to ourselves that we would never say to another person. We'd never say that to another person. We say we would never. I know you and I. We're nice people. You would never say to somebody else, "You're shit. You'll never amount to anything." You would never say that out loud to another human, would you? So why is it okay to say it to yourself if you would never say it to another person? Answer: it's not okay. And we should, might always come back to we should talk to ourselves like we talk to our best friends. That is what we should be doing. Our inner monologue should be the same as how we would talk to another human being. Because if we're saying things to ourselves that we wouldn't say to another human being, why? It's not fair. It's not nice. We're human beings too. It's fine to have a bit of, we're all our own worst critics. It's fine to want to to think, right, in comedy terms, okay, that gig didn't go too well. What can I learn from it? What can I improve? That's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
Telling yourself you're just shit, it's not okay. And
But
you're
yeah,
right. It's such a common thing. I probably do more work on this than anything else with people because I hear the things people say about themselves. I'm like, don't be horrible. Stop it.
yeah. This is the thing as well. But like, obviously, the things that you'd say to yourself you wouldn't say to anyone else, which even like thinking now, I know that, and although I have to once again like perhaps caveat or say that usually I think to my best friends I probably say the most horrific things that you can imagine. So that's why I was like, actually I feel like
Okay.
I usually when I thought about it, it's almost about I have to like the way I want to treat, or like I'm learning trying to treat myself. And also like sometimes I do tell people it's more about like it's about the feelings that you have towards, I think
Absolutely.
I would say that is the feelings that you have towards your best friend to have towards
Yeah.
yourself, because like I grew up in a place where people are not the best with words. Like we don't
Yeah.
express our love to others like that. We don't
Right. Yeah.
it's more about I would like kind of like die for this person. It's more of
Yeah.
you feel it in your heart. Like that's what I was gonna say when I speak with my friends.
That
Sometimes
makes
we
sense.
we laugh at each other, or we make
Yeah.
jokes at each other, that if you were to see it on the group chat, you'd be like, oh my god, this is
But you're right.
horrible.
It's
Who
the
are these
feeling.
people?
But it's
But yeah,
you're joking. You're
exactly. So
joking. That's the
that's what I
difference.
was thinking. That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
about now, because I do sometimes think that one of my closest friends is actually he's a comedian himself, and I think pretty much every time he asks me to tell him like my reaction on something that he's done, my first thought is that's shit. But it's just because like I'm like
But you
just
don't
to
mean
poke
it,
the
do you?
bear. Yeah, exactly.
You
That
don't
that
mean
you
it.
see that's the thing. But
Yeah.
the feeling behind it is I wish nothing but the best for this person. I mean like
Exactly.
I want them to do well. I want them to be in a good space. So then I feel like that's how I try to. Or like, that's how I look at it now, where I'm, pretty much like I want to, and I'm trying, and I'm working on it. I feel like it's hard work, but it's worth doing. What I was going to
Absolutely.
ask you actually, oh god, it was something to do with with basically, because I know I'm cautious of time. I'll ask you a couple more
Cheers.
questions, and then we're done, because it's getting quite
That's
late.
okay. I enjoy talking about this stuff. So.
I love it as well, by the way, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's why now I'm kind of thinking, oh, I want to ask you again a couple of
Yeah.
things, and I would love for us to do it again, because I feel like there is so much more that I'd love
Absolutely.
to talk to you about.
Happy to.
But you were talking about how you were like again in your late teens, you were living like in that evening, particular evening with your mates, and sometimes I think that I've had that situation where I'd be even surrounded by people, and I'm still like
Yeah.
the voice in my head is like, I hate myself right now. Like like if I can't find peace and happiness in this situation that I'm in, when am I going to? And it's quite heavy. So I can see where you're going with that. But basically, my question was, when you first started, or like basically when you envisioned yourself and you started going like, hey, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to this is the career that I'm trying to build, or this is the thing. What was it like to when you told your parents? Like, and also, I guess the back question for that is, as an outsider, how do you think that they saw your journey? Because again, this you're talking about how at 16 you had to kind of like take the deal of antidepressant plus therapy. But then, did you change a lot as a person in respect of, were you more open about your mental health? Did it seem like quite logic for them that, oh, of course, you're passionate about this? Or was it like, oh, wow, we did not see that coming, sort of thing? That was
Yeah.
what I meant by the question, basically.
I think it was a very gradual process back then. It took time, as I'm sure you know from when you are deep in bad mental health. You don't wake up day one after starting medication and it's all better.
Yeah.
It's a long journey, and for me it was quite a long journey. The first time I was medicated, I came off the antidepressants, I think, too soon, and only lasted, I think, about 6 months without them, and went into a massive depressive relapse. And then after that, stayed on the medication for quite a long time, for a few years. And I think in that time, it was a very gradual process of, I'm learning how to be less depressed, and also the anxiety. I went through a really bad and really long time of struggling with panic attacks with travel, particularly on trains, which, as a person, I'm severely visually impaired. I'll never be able to drive. I kind of need to be able to use public transport, and that was really tough, and I had to really push through that. But it did take a long time, and I think now it's easy to forget. Actually, looking back, it's easy to forget how long that was at the time, because now it's a small snapshot. It's a part of life. It's a small part of life, of my 33 years of life. But at the time, it was a very long, very gradual process. My parents are very, very different. My mum didn't always know how to help. When my mum gets worried and she doesn't know how to help, she gets frustrated. And that can then come across as anger. And then when you're depressed as a teenager, you're like, oh my God, I'm just making my parents angry. So that it wasn't always the most helpful way. But my mum has also always been there with me and through a lot of stuff. I've had physical health stuff as well. And I could say both my parents have been very much there for me. My dad doesn't always know how to deal with that kind of thing. Sometimes he prefers... I don't have deep conversations with my dad about mental health. I think he sort of prefers to keep it fairly surface and struggles. He struggles with things that he can't fix. He wants to be able to fix things, and there were obviously things in my childhood and even throughout my whole life, there have been things that he just can't fix, and he's not very good with that. So it's a journey. It's a journey for our parents as well, isn't it? Particularly when we're going through struggles as a young person, when our parents are still very involved. It's tough on parents. It's tough. It's tough to navigate the relationships, isn't it, and how it changes.
It definitely is, and I feel like actually, I should have phrased the question better, because it was more in the respect of again, what it felt like what did the transition feel like, to the person you are today, or what do you think it felt like for the people that were close to you? And then it's interesting because when you were talking about your mom and dad, I was thinking about my own parents, and it's kind of it's almost like it's a very similar story, where I've seen the frustration when things wouldn't go well, and I would see the frustration when it's like, oh, I want to help, but I just don't know how.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's horrible, parent.
It must be, because you're almost, and I always and I think the perception of the way the parenting would work in the again in the Balkans, in Romania, you had this sort of as a parent you're almost I always think like you're like a security, like a bodyguard to your kids. You have to make sure that everything goes smooth.
Yeah.
And then now that you can't do that,
Yeah.
it's terrible. But then it's kind of like you said, it's things that have nothing to do with them, because it's like,
Yeah.
you're not.
They can't take it
I mean,
away.
yeah, you can't take it away, and it's yeah, and it must be difficult, because I even think sometimes, when I hopefully I will at one point be a parent, and I'm usually, or like usually I'm often thinking about how will I
Yeah.
deal with this thing, because I feel like now it's so, I think when I think about, like, oh, how would I deal with even like a child going out without me. I would,
Yeah.
I would probably, like, I would have like I would like be on the phone constantly, and I'll almost be like, oh, like, let me know everything all the time. How do I,
I'm 33. I recently had not an argument. I recently had a debate with my dad on the way home from a gig because he wanted me to let him know when I was home. And I'm like, I can't do that every time. And I said, I get it. I get it from the parents' point of view, but
yeah.
also at some point, surely we don't do that for our entire lives. And I'm like,
I
Dad, it's
mean,
going to be midnight. You need to just sleep. This is not your career to be up traveling home from gigs at that time.
it's such a beautiful, because it's like such a beautiful problem to have,
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah. Of course.
it's really, like, I can see the fun behind it. Where it's like, like,
Yeah.
again, like you said, I'm 33. Like, how do you think this is this is sustainable?
No, exactly. It's not, is it? It's just
Yeah, but
not.
I remember, like, I used to, well, you see, this is the thing. My mom used to do a similar thing, but again, it was before comedy. But I used to work late in, like, restaurants and
Yeah.
bars and stuff like this, and my mom would be like, oh, let me know when you get home, and I
Yeah.
would, like, and then I wouldn't do it, because I'd be like, oh, it's like, it's gonna be 3 o'clock in Romania now. Like, you shouldn't be up this time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then the next day I would get, like, a bollocking from my mom and be like, why didn't you text me when you got home? And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, so now
If you
basically I
agree
went to
to
the
do
point,
it, you've got to do it. That's the
and then
thing.
I went to the point where I would be like, you know what, fine, I will text you at 1
Yeah.
a.m. to tell, like,
Yeah.
1 a.m. my time, which is 3 a.m. your time,
Oh,
to
God.
tell you that I'm going home. And then guess
Yeah.
what? At 3:20 or like 3:30, I
Yeah.
would get, like, a thumbs up, or some, and I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, you're like, I know I've woken them up. I don't like it. Yeah. But,
Yeah,
you
and
know, yeah, it's a tough one. But I think to kind of to answer the question you were trying to ask, I've been very lucky. My parents are incredibly supportive of the comedy. I've talked about it in my comedy because my dad is the ever the optimist. So my dad, like, after gig one, was like, "You're a genius. You're gonna make millions in your first year." And I'm like, "No, just no." My mum's more cautious. My mum's more like, "This is a tough industry." She wouldn't, but she was incredibly proud when I've won the awards and things have gone well, and it's really lovely, isn't it?
They should be. This is amazing, because and
Are
again,
your
like, and
parents proud
now,
of you from afar?
well, yeah, the thing is, sadly, both of them have passed, but
Oh shit,
while I
no,
was
sorry,
thinking,
that was
no, no,
putting
no,
it,
it's
wasn't it? Sorry.
no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And I always feel bad about, like, I'm like, how do I bring it up?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
but what I was gonna say is, though, actually, what you reminded me of is that when I was in the first year at high school, we used to have this, like, freshers, like, freshers of the year sort of thing.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was like a ceremony, and it was like a talent competition, and
Oh,
my dad wanted, like, nothing to do with it. My dad was like, "This is propaganda,
oh wow.
don't get involved, whatever." But I was like, "No, I want to do it because it's pretty cool." And then
Yeah,
I managed to. I remember in the night I won it.
that was
I
amazing.
went. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
was
It
it
was like Levy.
comedy?
No, well, it was like a talent show. So basically,
Yeah.
I had to do some, dancing with. I had a partner, so
Oh,
me
that's
and
so
her,
cool.
we competed together.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and then I did an impression of Johnny Bravo. Um, Then I basically at the talent bit, I sang a song, but it was more like a
wow.
it was like a parody song sort of thing. It was quite easy to
Yeah.
sing because I don't have a necessarily great voice for singing.
Well, you
And
won
then
it,
like
so you must have done something
yeah,
right.
so that's the thing I wanted, and I remember going home because basically then we were allowed to go clubbing. Obviously, there was like a limit and stuff like that, but they had like a youth club night sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And I
nice.
was like, oh, before I go to the club, I'm gonna go home, and I go home, and I had this thing that was like it was like almost like a crown, but the thing that people like put around like their shoulder, that's like a birthday boy or birthday
Oh,
girl.
yeah,
But then
yeah.
I had one that said like now like winner, and then I was
Oh,
like, okay, I'm gonna go and drop this off at home
yeah,
because I live nearby, and
yeah.
then I'm gonna get back out. And then when I get home, my mom was like, "How did he go?" And I was like, "I won." And
Oh,
my mom was like, "Oh, amazing!" And then I remember my dad from the bedroom. My dad goes like, "Levy, come in." And I walk in, and my dad's in bed, and my dad goes like, "Congratulations! I'm very proud of you." And
oh,
but you see, the thing is, it's very little because obviously he was
yeah,
in one respect, like one would think, is that it? But then
yeah,
in the other hand, coming from him, whose scale
yeah.
was
That's a lot.
0 and 1, that was
Yeah,
like a 7 or a 9 on the scale of
yeah.
excitement. And then I remember, yeah, he goes like, "Come." He was like, "Where are you going now?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to the after party." He was like, "Come here, let me give you some money," and he gave me like 20 quid.
See,
I was
that
like
says
going
something
like,
as well, doesn't it?
yeah, and he was like, go, like enjoy yourself. And
Oh,
I still like now again. I haven't thought about it in years, and until you
yeah.
mentioned your story with like with your parents, but I was like, oh
Mm.
yeah, I still remember him now. I remember the pajama he was wearing. I remember,
Yeah,
everything about
yeah.
that night and the way he just went like, congrats, I'm proud of you. And I was like, this is
I think
weird
that
from a
means
guy.
you can. I think that means now you can think he would be proud of you.
I hope so, and I usually think that when I do, I think even when I do when I do comedy, I often
Mm.
think that this is the kind of stuff that they would like. I'd like to hope
Yeah,
so anyway.
yeah.
Because I try to accommodate everyone. I'm trying to also, my dad was like very sarcastic and very like dark humor, and I feel like he
Mm.
would love that. My mom was very opinionated, and I try to do a bit of that too. But anyway,
Yeah. Mm.
yeah, no, again, I haven't thought about this in years. But look, it's been
Hopefully, it's a nice thought, not a bad thought.
it's a wonderful thought. I think I feel
Mm.
very, very. It makes me feel quite happy, and I feel like the
Mm.
conversation that we had, it's actually made me reflect on quite a few,
Yeah.
different things, and I'm like, I feel
Mm.
good.
Good.
I'm happy.
Good.
With that in
I'm really
mind,
pleased.
I appreciate you so much for taking the time. I'd love to do this again because again, I feel like there are some things
Oh,
I want to ask you which are a bit more,
yeah.
I want to say like science based or like work based
Mm.
that I'd love
We can
to
definitely
talk to you
do.
about.
We can do this again. I'm more than happy to. Like I say, I love talking
Wonderful.
about this stuff, and I hope that whoever's listening is feeling good inside, like you are. Well, like I am too. Like we are.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think that's the. I feel like
Mm.
that was one of the that's one of the goals,
Yeah,
to
absolutely. It's always my
make
goal.
bless you. And well, now the final question is, it's a question of two different questions. What have you got coming up, and what's your people who actually no? First question is, what's your handle? Where are you most active? Where can people find your work? And then the second question would be, what have you got coming up?
Okay, so coaching wise, I've got a website which is sydneymay.co.uk. Sydney spelled Sydney, and then May like the month. I'm most active on Instagram, which is at the Sydney_May. I'm also on Facebook. You can see I've got a few gigs on YouTube, comedy gigs. Yeah, let me just look at my calendar. I've definitely got some exciting things. So I'm headlining a charity gig at Brighton Comedia on the 23rd of September. So, it's lovely to be doing something that's for a good cause and not just a gig. I'm also back at Brighton Comedia again on the 5th of October, and that's at their Down the Hatch monthly night. So I love Brighton Comedia. It's like my happy place. It's where I won my first award. So I love going back there. Then I have got 27th of September. I'm at the Queer Comedy Club in London. Lewis Comedy Club on the 25th. There's so many gigs. There's a lot. August is always a quiet one because I didn't go to Edinburgh this year. So August is comedy break, and then September, October are just looking a bit bananas. What have I got? 2nd of October. That's 2nd of October. That's another fundraiser, Seaford in Sussex. But yeah, the best place to keep up with it is my Instagram. I need to sort out getting a proper sort of calendar of upcoming gigs on my website, but don't have that yet. So I generally try and put things on the Instagram. So yeah, feel free to follow me. Sometimes I'll put up some little coachy hints and tips on Instagram as well. I don't do that as much as I used to, actually. My Instagram before I did comedy, my Instagram was all just coaching little top tips and stuff. I'd love to get back into doing a bit more of that. But yeah, feel free to follow, and I'm crazy busy, so I'm always somewhere.
That's amazing, and I feel like when you were talking about the September, October, it's like again, it's tiring, and we got to look after ourselves and make sure that we don't get like burned out. But it does, in the grand scheme of things, it's a good problem to have.
It just doesn't feel like work because I just love it. The same with coaching. I love doing it. It is draining. It does take energy, but I love it. I love all of it. So yeah, bring it, bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. Bring it on. Let's we'll face it and then see what's up. But Sydney, thank you so much again for doing this. I'll take again. I'll put your handle and I'll put the website in the bio or like in the description of the episode for everyone listening to go and like have a look. And thank you so much again for doing this, and we'll catch up soon. Have a good night. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, what do you think? Was it good? Was it what you hoped for? I hope you enjoyed listening to this as much as I enjoyed having the conversation with Sydney, because I think it was great. I had I had a great time. Had a great time speaking to her. She's such a lovely person and a great comedian. So make sure you check out her work, and not just the comedy work. Make sure you check out her um, life coaching work as well, because it's pretty cool, right? It's quite impressive, we know. And anyway, from me, you know where to find me for for more details and updates on live podcast, comedy, etc. Um, if not, I will still add my socials to the description of this episode, and there will also be um, Sydney's details in the description of the episode as well. And I think that's it from me, Pickle and Sarma. Until next week, stay skillful and goodbye.